you know, I wonder where the question came from, how to value yourself. Is it part of the present day lexicon, if you like? It certainly would not have been a question that I would have grown up with, although there may have been statements made by parents. They would have questioned, don't you value yourself? Don't you have respect for yourself? And such like. But in the question being asked, perhaps there might be additional bits to it. In how to value yourself is a standalone question, but it could also be how to value yourself instead of accepting the value, it would seem, that is imposed upon you maybe by others. And the question is to do with self-worth. It's to do with, I suppose, self-respect. And really, all questions maybe go back to this one question. And in answering it correctly, then you can proceed. And that question is, who am I? And that's the puzzle, if you like. We can have an answer in terms of a spiritual identity, but forever we are dealing with this entity that one is in terms of an eternal being. And so there's so many layers to us that we're not just the sum total of this lifetime's experience, whether it's, 20 years or 80 years, whatever it happens to be. And so there are those things that I have no doubt carried with me, perhaps from other incarnations, as well as whatever it is that life has presented me with at the present time. And those of us who are on a spiritual path, and I think everyone actually, whether they know it or not, is on a spiritual path in terms of seeking to answer these big questions, and then not just to answer them, because actually the answer is very easy. And it's then about putting it into practice. It's about making it a reality. And so I was just thinking a little while ago that maybe going back to, my teenage years and my 20s, influenced very much by the music of the day, and part of which was the Beatles. And in a kind of a way, they gave the answer to all of those things. In other words, love is the answer. That was the title. Love is the answer, or all you need is love, or in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. And so it's easy to say it, it's easy to sing it. And the reason perhaps that those lyrics struck a chord with me and many of my generation, because that deeper part of oneself knew the truth of that. And that's the journey that we're on. And so never mind learning to love myself. More simply, it's about liking myself. And when I look at this question of valuing oneself, then I would have to look at values totally, and recognize that values may have been imposed on you, to which you were supposed to live up to. And that could have been a social thing, a cultural thing, religion, and all the rest of it. And that you were often reminded that you weren't living up to those values, that you got criticized, you got blamed, you got marginalized, you got maybe discounted or put out of whether it was a gathering or a situation, because you weren't exemplifying these values. And so that there's this sometimes contradiction in oneself. And of course, again, to belong to any group, be it your immediate family, extended family, maybe even as much as a nationality, that there are tacit agreements about how we should behave and what we should do in certain situations. And then maybe there's a point where that creates stress, because what you're feeling is maybe something different from what has been given to you. And so I was thinking in terms of a lot of P's that you may have taken your sense of value for yourself from. I was thinking of it in terms of people, paternity, possessions, your paycheck, your profession, your partner, that all of these things gave you a sense of value. And so to be able to discern between, a certain confidence that comes on the basis of perhaps your skills, or your intelligence, or your beauty as defined by norms, that may give you a certain confidence. But I think the thing about it is that it's not something that is going to be a constant. Not your family, not your partner, not your possessions, or your profession, or anything else. And more than ever in this last couple of years, we're seeing how fluid things are and how they can quickly change, go from one thing to another. But I think all the while there is something in me that keeps pushing or wanting, like the little flower in the crack in the pavement that keeps reaching towards the sun. And that when I ask this question, I have to keep looking at my book, How to Value Yourself. If you're sincerely asking the question, then a couple of things come to mind. One is that it may be coming from a very, very ancient memory, whether individually or collectively, of a time when you did value yourself and who you were, independent of your skills, your environment, your challenges, or anything else. I was thinking sometimes it's a little bit of a luxury to be able to ask the question, how to value yourself. If you listen to the news, as I did earlier on today, and whether it's the farmers in Delhi or it's the refugees, at the Polish border or whatever, are they asking themselves how to value themselves? That it's much more about a humanitarian type of thing. And maybe the question is, am I valued just as a human being, or as, a citizen, or whatever else? And so these two are valid questions. And seeing how people in these extreme situations maintain their dignity, their self awareness, even whilst being pushed back or told no. And then what does it look like to you to have value for the self? Perhaps we know what not having value for the self results in. And it's that inner critic, that just sabotages everything. Everything good you come up with, it's going to have a negative. It's constantly projecting failure, loss, whatever you can think of. And it's this little voice, in a sense, that needs to maybe have the volume turned down, as well as an adjustment. I could say that sometimes valuing the self is contingent upon a kind of an awareness. And if you really are sincere, then you might even be able to acknowledge that critic in your head, that one that always finds you less than somebody else, that is always about comparing. And so it's okay. It's like, yes, this is what's going on in my head. And so there's a level of, acceptance of it, but only so that then there can be an adjustment, because it is too painful. It no longer serves me, that there's something else going on. It's like as if there's another energy happening simultaneously that says enough already. In a relationship, it's not even that I dislike the other person for what they've done to me, but I don't like who I've become in the relationship. And so I'm endeavoring to do something about it. And so that even this pain, the acknowledgement of it, the acceptance of it is good, because it's alerting you to something that is not right and that needs attention, that needs whether medication or in extreme cases an operation. And at the present time, I can look at the world if I choose and think, oh, it's terrible. I don't choose to do that, because I feel that it's kind of like allowing everything to come to the surface, and that the truth of things, and you see people attempting more than ever to not be defined by the old paradigm, by the old value system, and to see to keep seeing and reacting to the differences between themselves and other people, be it in terms of race or culture or religion or whatever else. I think that was one of the things for me growing up. And I wonder which was more enforced, and that was that you are no less than anybody else. And growing up in a situation where politically there was, one class and another class, so you were reminded that you're no less than anybody else. But more often than not, you would be critiqued by parents or friends for thinking you were better than anybody else. And so I think this is a very, very important thing, is that I am no better than anyone else. and I am no less than anybody else, that we are all just a version of the same, not even a question of, how the body is made up, of its molecules and everything else, but even at a different level, at a more subtle level, that we all have the same fears, the same inhibitions, the same insecurities, the same judgmental nature. I'm not saying everyone to the same degree, and some I may have managed to shift and reduce and increase the better ones. And so that I'm here. I always say creation has given me a part, has made me room. I am intrinsic to the whole drama, and that no matter what else disappears, it could even eventually be, my relationship with God, but I am always with me. And it is a priority that I get on with myself. And so it requires a degree of gentleness. It requires a degree of self-care. And sometimes even when I'm out walking by myself, I'll just stop, and it's like I'm the only one in the whole world. There's no one else. There's nobody to tell me what to do, what not to do, what I should be doing, what I didn't do. How many voices do you have in your head? And that I'm just me, and I'm happy with me. And so this is one of the things that I've been thinking about recently, is to recognize to whom you have given authority to tell you who you are, or how that you're valued. And so there are people in our heads sometimes. It could be family members, it could be an authority figure apart from my own self. And I was thinking of it a little bit like, we're all in a drama. We know that. We're all actors. And every movie or play has a director. And so do you have a director in your head? And so the director, who is directing you? And that director, just like, in a theater situation, they may not care one whit about you as a person. They are only interested in that you say the lines that they have given you, and that you act according to how they want you to act in their drama. And they will then be content. And, that the relationship can sometimes become such that you're not even, and in that situation, of course, you're getting paid, but in life, you're not. And you have sometimes directors, maybe even more than one. And that director, that voice in your head of someone else, and there are and can be loving voices, no question, and pay attention to those. But the other one that just, wants their drama to be the way they want it, which means you have to act the way they want you to act. You may not even be in the room with them or in the city with them, but you hear their voice, or again, they just need to look at you in a certain way, and it's like you straighten up. And so that then what you're doing, in a sense, is at one level, it's not a bad thing, but it is, maybe you're not even thinking about it, but it's about keeping them happy. It's about keeping them peaceful. which is a very nice trait, but not where you compromise who you are yourself and who it is that you are meant to be in terms of when you are flourishing and whole. There's a very nice idea within the Brahma Kumari's teaching, and that is seeing a world in the future, a world where that is just operating on the highest possible level of vibration and love, and that every single entity in that scenario, which will be for many, many millennia, is sufficient unto themselves. And even though they operate with love and cooperation and intelligence, emotional and otherwise, they don't need any advisors. Not even in a sense, the supreme, that they will be completely autonomous, and there will be no question of what it is that pervades life today. This thing of superiority and inferiority. And it happens at every level, whether nations, religions, individuals, family members, whatever. None of that will be there. And so I think that's what we're going for. Now, if you haven't already experimented with meditation, now is a good time to start. Now is the best time to start, not only because any time is the best time to start, but I really feel that there's a quantity and a quality of vibration out there in the world that will enhance any attempt, the slightest attempt that I make towards understanding reality on another and more subtle level. Now, we've looked to others. Mostly our sense of value comes to us through mirror images, and they're not reliable. As they say, they're changing. And so in meditation, what happens is the possibility of getting an image of yourself that you have not had before, and with which it is almost impossible to argue, because it is coming from the one who does not get involved in the karmic situations of our mundane world of matter and of density. And it's an invitation to come into another knowing. And it's a knowing that you, although forgotten, have had before. And it will present you to yourself without values that have come from the politics that you're involved in, the gender issues you're involved in, the family dynamic, but it will be not just minus those things. It's kind of magical, really, but it's showing you. It's like getting a trailer, like you get a trailer of an upcoming movie, of at the same time who you were and who you will be, not just can be, but will be. And then armed with that energy and that image, you look at yourself then in your current situations in a somewhat different way. And so it's like you are cultivating that value for yourself. And in so doing, I think one of the great things that happens is that you start to get a sense of humor about it all. You see the game for what it is and can even be entertained by it rather than feeling defeated by it or made insignificant by it. And so in this way, you begin to participate in the change. And it's all to do with the seeing, a way of seeing, a way of looking. And so no longer, because often this thing of valuing yourself, that it can be like a kitchery of different things. Not only, what has come to you from, your parenting, your education, all of those things, but also what has slipped in there is ego. And that one thing is where there's the poor me, I have no value, I'm not worthy, nobody likes me, I'm super, super, super sensitive. And the other side of it, of course, is the arrogance, because I've used my ego to cover up my sense of not feeling good enough. I remember a situation a good number of years ago where in speaking to someone, and this person was having difficulties with, let me use the expression, the mother superior, which you may be familiar with, but just, superior isn't a good word, but meaning someone who was their senior, more spiritually elevated and everything. So let me call that person the mother superior. And the other one, she was very distressed. She was full of a lot of sorrow and tears and everything. And what she was explaining to me was that the mother superior didn't understand her, didn't appreciate her, and so on and so on. And so I said to her, and I meant it when I said it, I said, I really don't fully understand that, because I had a nice relationship with the mother superior. And so I says, I really don't understand it, why you should be getting such a hard time and you're so much better than I am. And she instantly agreed with me that she was so much better than I was. And that made me realize, oh dear, the arrogance of one's goodness, And then I realized why she was having, or why it appeared that the mother superior was giving her a hard time. She really wasn't. She was just trying to show her something. And so, as I say, sometimes this lack of value for yourself manifests as ego. And it's sometimes worse because you don't realize it. The pobrecita, the poor me, woe is me. You because there's so much, sorrow, and you're blaming yourself. The thing with the arrogance is you're in sorrow, but you're blaming somebody else. So as long as you're blaming somebody else, you're not going to look at yourself. You're not going to see what you have contributed to the whole thing. And so in this way, you know, and we're all the mixture of all of these things. And so for me, just that pursuing the pursuit of the question, who am I? And recognizing that you are maybe, you know, valuing and valid, you know, and where have I been getting my validation from before? And so it's really about, you know, validating your own self. And the other thing that I feel too, that sometimes when I'm lost in that thing of woe is me and nobody likes me and so on and so forth, it's it's a lot of self-absorption, you know, and through it sometimes you garner a lot of attention from others, people trying to make you feel better or jolly you along, whatever it is. And so sometimes you're giving up that attention, but hopefully when it becomes severe enough, you know, then you know you can't be the child anymore. But, you know, and it's the oldest advice, spiritually speaking, and it is as true as, you know, the sky is blue. And that is, whatever it is you don't have, give it. And so when I'm woe is me, I'm the pauper. I don't feel I have capacity. I'm the needy one. And, you know, I really feel at the present time, whatever little thing you do towards your own realization or contributing to the well-being or of others or the planet or whatever, the reward is instant. And, you know, I've seen this thing, as many of you would have too, in terms of course, I put it in the context of the Brahma Kumaris because that's the life I live, and that's where I've seen it operate so many times. And there's also a reference to it, biblically speaking, in terms of Christianity, but this thing of not just synchronicity, but when you really have the thought to give or to do for others, it's never going to be a question, oh, I'd love to be able to give, but I don't have. But the opposite, what I've seen here is that it could be, you know, you might think that you're giving food to 50 people, you've prepared food for 50 people, but 190, 200 show up, and somehow miraculously, or you have sweetmeats for everybody, and you didn't expect so many people, but my goodness, can you imagine? There's exactly the amount you needed. Haven't you all seen that? You know, and perhaps it's similar to the story that you get in the Bible of the loaves and fishes, that there was only 5 loaves and whatever number of fish. You know, it's not your diet, but that somehow they multiplied. And of course, that was seen as a miracle. It's not a miracle. It is just the impetus to give and to be of service. And the universe will provide the wherewithal. And in that way, you can see yourself in a different way. And you realize, fine, I'm not as beautiful as everybody else. I'm not as intelligent as everybody else. But it's like, I think it was Martin Luther King that said that not everyone can be great, but everyone can be of service. And so serving, not because it's something menial, but because this is the quickest way to realization, to cutting the prior illusions about what was of value and what wasn't. It's just a very speedy way to do that. And of course, meditation is going to take you in a different direction. And then I always like this idea that the only thing that I'm responsible for is my level of vibrations. And I choose what vibration I want to emit and what vibration I wish to be surrounded by and what vibration I can maybe contribute. That's it. I can only do it for me, not for anybody else. And maybe in the doing, someone will be inspired.